Hey everybody, so we're starting our Algebra EOC review must-know questions. Please, I don't want you guys to go when you go to take this test and suddenly think, oh, Mr. C never taught me anything. Guys, they ask these questions in the most complicated, convoluted way you've ever seen, okay? We know the skills. Remember I told you in class, we teach in class the level 1, the level 2 questions, some of the level 3 questions. Algebra Nation was really good at giving us the level 3, 4, and 5 questions, but also it's just the way they ask them sometimes are so complicated and so wordy. The first thing you have to do is read the directions carefully. Okay? Number one thing is reading the directions carefully. They are trying to trick you. All right? So let's get started and see some of these questions that you must know how to do these style questions. Okay? Guaranteed. Of course, we just finished 3/4 worth of review. I did not add questions onto this list that were like use the quadratic equation, factor, zero product property too much, because we just did that. So now this is reviewing everything else that you need. Make sure you know those other things as well, all right? Number 1 says f of x equals 2 to the x power. Notice they just gave you function notation. They gave you function notation up here. So you are sitting here looking at this, and hopefully at this particular point, the function notation is not something that scares you too bad, all right? F of x. This is the same as y. Y equals 2 to the x power, or in this case, it's this function where its independent variable x. There's your independent variable x, okay? So they want us to know, is this function linear, quadratic, absolute value, and exponential? If you remember what your parent functions are, y equals x, y equals x squared, y equals, this is the easy one, the absolute value of x, y equals, say, a to the x power. Notice in this one here, our exponent is the independent variable. This is a line, the line y equals x. This is a quadratic function. This is the absolute value. Look, linear, quadratic, absolute value, exponential. I kind of drew the parent functions of each one of the options that they gave us here. All right? So you have to be very, very careful when you're doing this, guys. You got to know your functions. It's one of those things you just have to know. All right? So this is, yes, an exponential function. Next, which is its graph. Well, guys, if you know this, you need to make sure you know what they look like. 4 particular functions. This one is linear. It's a line. This is a U-shaped graph. This is a V. And this starts off it's a curve that starts off very, very slow and gets very fast quick. Just like the coronavirus. It's only been on TV for months now, this particular graph. So let's look at these that they show. This one is starts and goes down sharply. This is a nice straight line. This one starts off small and quickly grows. This is a U-shaped graph. Clearly, B is going to be your option for this one. This is an exponential function. Number 2 says d equals b times t squared times z divided by 6. Solve for b. This was from chapter 2 of our textbook. This is solving literal equations. We need to solve for b here. So this is what we're trying to solve for. That means all this other stuff has to go away. B needs to be sitting all by itself on that side. Well, first thing is, it's sitting in a fraction. We can't even touch the numerator until we get rid of this denominator. So this means it's being divided. Anytime we need to move something to the other side, we have to perform a reciprocal function or the opposite function. So the opposite of division is multiplication. So both sides have to be multiplied by the denominator. 6 times 1/6 cancels. So now you have 6d equals b times t squared times z. Well, now we're still trying to get this b here by itself. So we have a b being multiplied by this and being multiplied by this. The opposite of multiplication, or its reciprocal property, is division. So you simply divide by whatever you do not want on that side. So I want to get rid of the t squared times z, so I divide by t squared times z. Anything divided by itself cancels, anything divided by itself cancels, and you're left with 6d divided by t squared times z equals b. And then this would be your final answer. All right. Now I know you guys look at number 3, and I already have people saying, oh my God, what's that? You didn't teach us that. I did, guys. Let's say if you were to cover up this here, okay, here it is. Here's the zero product property. So if this is an equation, it's set equal to 0. All right, zero product property. So we would just set each piece equal to 0 and solve. Well, now chapter 8 from Algebra Nation, or section 8, they had what happens when you have more than just 2 factors of something. It was higher order functions, the solutions to them. Okay, we did that. I assigned that. Did everybody watch the movies and the videos and do their work? No. So maybe that's why you're confused. But it's okay. Very simple. You have a bunch of products that equal 0. The zero product property says take each one of these factors and set it equal to 0 and solve. So yeah, we're going to have 3 equations we have to solve for. You'll have an x plus 1 equals 0. You'll have an x minus 3. X minus 3 equals 0. And you'll have an x minus 5 equals 0. Guys, these are super simple equations to solve. Subtract 1 from both sides, so your x will equal -1. Add 3 to both sides. Add 5 to both sides. So be careful. If they give it to you like this, where it's 3 blank lines, then clearly you're filling those in. Maybe it says separate your answers using a comma. So you would have to type in -1, comma, 3, comma, 5. How you input your answers, you have to read the directions to figure that out. It really sucks to do all your work properly and then you don't input your answer correctly. Uh-oh, what is this? Mr. C, this graph here looks nothing like the parent graphs that we were talking about up here, our parent functions. This isn't a line, it's not a U-shaped graph, it's not a V, it's not a curve that goes up fast or a curve that goes down very fast. Yeah, guys, I know this is a cubic function. Did we study cubic functions? No, but we did learn about having multiple zeros in that one section of 8. So therefore, they translate this zero product rule to a graph and expect you to be able to solve it. Remember, I told you several times that they asked you for the zeros, they asked you for the solutions. They may also ask you for the x-intercepts. X-intercept. Can you find x-intercepts here? Well, this is our x-axis. This is the y-axis. Where does this squiggly graph cross your x-axis at? It crosses at -1, comma, and then at 1, 2, 3, and then 3, 4, 5. So here are your solutions, your zeros, or your x-intercepts. All mean the exact same thing, and it's kind of funny because it's right here above there. Okay, so this is what this looks like, guys. Okay? And again, number 5 says, what are the zeros? So here is a quadratic function. For the function f of x equals this, they would probably have this set equal to 0 for you. So what are the zeros of this? Well, first thing we have to do is we need to get x. We need this x here by itself. But notice it is stuck inside of parentheses. Those parentheses are being squared. And we have numbers outside of it all. So we have to solve using the laws of math. We can't mess with this until this is gone. So how do we get rid of a negative 9? We add 9 to both sides. So now we have x minus 2 squared equals 9. Ooh, now we have all this stuff here trapped inside of a set of parentheses, which is then being trapped by a squared sign. Right? So how do we get rid of this? We have to take the square root of both sides. When we take the square root of something, there you go, plus or minus. So the square root of 9 is 3. So you have plus or minus 3. And then we have x minus 2. All right, we're almost there. Almost there. X is almost by itself. What do we have to do? We have to add 2 to both sides. And this is, please, please, please be careful. So we have x equals 2 plus or minus 3. We're going to have 2 results here, guys. 2. We have a 2 plus 3. And we have a 2 minus 3. 2 plus 3 is 5. 2 minus 3 is negative 1. There's your solutions. 5, negative 1. That was basically solving using the roots method. Okay? Number 6 says the function f of x equals x squared. What is the maximum domain if y is restricted to f of x equals 144 and f of x equals 1286? All right, this is confusing. This is ridiculous that they might be able to ask this, but they can. So if you recall, here's the parent function again of a quadratic function. Okay? It starts down here, and then it goes up this way forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And then if you're looking at the y value or the x values, every single, because this goes up forever and ever and ever in this direction, every single x value this way can be used. Every single value that way can be used. So your domain, generally the domain for this is all real numbers, provided that they're not restricting any of your results. Because we only have an x, provided that we can get a y. Right? We have an equation. We can only get an x, we can only have the y or the f of x part if we have a number to plug in for x. Okay? And here it says, well, f of x is going to equal 144, and f of x equals 1286. So basically what they're saying is can we use y equals 1? No, it doesn't fall within that range from 144 to 1286. We can't even start figuring out what y's or what x's we're using or we'll get until we get up to here where y equals 144. And then it goes from here to where? To 1286 equals x squared. And so we need to figure out, well, what is the values of x that are being used here? Because we have x's that are on this side, we have x's that are on this side, but we can't use some of them because it doesn't make sense. Just solve it, guys. This is solving a simple equation. Get x by itself, plus or minus the square root of this. X by itself, plus or minus the square root of this? So yeah, here comes the calculator. Well, we should know this side. The square root of 144 is 12. So plus or minus negative 12. And then we also have on this side here, well, what is the square root of that? I don't know off the top of my head. That's a big number. 1286, shift square root. Double check that. It's like 35 point something. Say 35.5. Plus or minus. So we're basically the restricted domain in this case. What we have to look for is we have from negative 12 to negative 35.5. So that's everything. That's the only x's that are being used on this side. And on this side, we have from 12 to 35.5. And we have to say, what was the maximum domain? The maximum. What was the largest domain that was being used? The largest domain was 35.5. It's the largest of all the ones that are listed here. So we found out any number from here to here will work. Any number from here to here, well, these clearly are not the largest ones. Their numbers are negative. They're smaller than these. And from 12 to 35.5, which number is the largest or the maximum? The largest of the domain? 35.5. So yeah, this is a tricky problem, guys. Please, please, please be careful. This is hard. This is like a level 5 problem because you need to have a detailed knowledge of your ability, and it needs to be able to be right. Okay? So please, please, please be careful. I'm going to come back and we'll finish up 7 through the rest in just a minute. All right?